this post type has gained a lot of popularity with the digerati and the programming types, but it can really be applied to just about any niche. So first, what's a workflow? Wikipedia defines it as a workflow consists of a sequence of connected steps. It's a depiction of a sequence of operations. So Ed and I shared our daily curation workflows with you in Module 1 of OSB Shipping. So that should give you a concrete recent example of what a workflow might look like. Sharing your workflow is different from a how-to post in that with a workflow, you're talking about how and why you use certain tools and what order you do things in a task or routine job that really could be done several ways. So just like Ed and I do our daily curation differently but accomplish the same thing in the end, when you share a workflow, you aren't necessarily saying that this is the only way to do it, but you're saying that this is how you do it, and then you explain why you do it that way. So let me give you an example. You might share your workflow for doing dishes. If you've ever lived with anybody else, I think that you know that everybody does dishes a little bit different. They load the dishwasher a different way. Do the forks point up or down? What items do you put in first? So if I were going to talk about doing my dishes, that workflow, it would be very, very different than Zach's workflow for doing dishes. It's my husband. But I still think that mine is more efficient. But anyway, I mean, if you think that this is kind of nitpicky and kind of obsessive, it might be. But remember, you want to attract the big fans, the people who are incredibly passionate about your niche. These are the people who are willing to spread the word about you and your site to other people who are into your niche. If you've ever heard Star Wars fans debate some tiny detail of the movies, which is something that's really hard to avoid on the internet as a whole, so I'm sure you've come across it, you know that there's no such thing as being too nitpicky when it comes to an Uber fan. So it might never have even occurred to you that you do dishes in a certain way, that you have a workflow, but if you think about it, you do. Are you one of the folks that fills up the sink with soapy water first and lets everything soak? Or do you kind of cross your fingers and toss everything in the dishwasher with a quick rinse and then hope that the dishwasher does its job? Those are all aspects of your workflow. Now, here's a guy who created a traveling packing workflow and then shared on his blog how he uses the OmniFocus software to implement and remember that workflow. If packing can have a workflow that's published online on a reputable site and well received, I'm certain you can come up with some workflows in your niche that you could publish. So what goes into a workflow piece? You'll want to discuss the tools that you've chosen to use, whether they're software tools or physical objects or shortcuts. And when you do that, you'll also want to discuss why you've chosen those tools. So if you're using Chrome over Firefox and that's an integral part of your workflow, you should take a moment to explain why that is. Your workflow should also talk about the order in which you do things and why. When I'm doing dishes, I always set aside all the silverware in a cup to soak, and I put those things in the dishwasher last because it makes the caked off stuff on the forks come off easier. Maybe I think about doing dishes too much, but within your niche, there are processes, there's activities, there's things that people do again and again, and you can share the order that you choose to do things in with your site visitors as part of your workflow. So let's take this to a more concrete example. Here's some examples of workflows that could be published within the internet marketing niche. So we've got a keyword research workflow, how you contact other bloggers and propose guest posts, how you create content for your site, a video editing workflow, what tools you use, what order you do things in. Do you deal with the audio first or do you deal with your clips first? Whatever the case may be, that's all part of your workflow. How you do social media link building, how you do article marketing, what tools you use, what order you do things in. Your domain buying workflow, what sites you use, how you determine what is available out there. Monitoring pay-per-click campaigns, what tools you use, do you do it in the morning, what kind of things do you choose to take action on and not take action on, and then how do you take that action? A reputation management workflow, how do you keep up to date as far as what's being said and done in your niche about your products, services, and name? How you hire contractors, what sites you go to, what interview questions you ask. How you manage your customer support. Do you have a support desk? Who responds to them? who deals with the PayPal stuff, that sort of thing. So take it back to a different niche. Here's some ideas of what you could do in the backpacking niche. Packing workflow, how you stuff all your stuff in that bag. What do you consider when looking at the weight of things and how long you're going to be carrying it? How you set up your camp. The order that you do things in probably matters to people in the backpacking niche. Where you place things in relationship to the sun, that could all be very relevant, or to trees for shelter. All that could be very relevant to people in that niche. How you pitch your tent. Do you lay down a tarp first? Do you do the stakes before or after? That sort of thing. Evening meal preparation. For backpackers, serious backpackers anyway, you know, they carry very little in the way of tools, and so they'll have very specific ways that they create or produce their food, and one could share some of their favorite evening meals and how they prepare them. And this isn't just a recipe, because it involves some really unique tools within the backpacking niche. Foot care. And this is something, again, very unique to backpacking, but if you're going to be out there wandering around in the wilderness for a few weeks, your feet are probably going to need some attention. How do you manage that? And this might seem kind of silly, managing a massive mountain, but you know, when a summit seems like it's impossible, like you're never going to make it, how do you manage that? Do you get out your stick and walk with it? What do you call those things? I don't remember. You know, do you take a break for a day? Do you unload some of your heavier items and leave them at a lower base camp? That sort of thing could all be discussed as part of a workflow for managing something that may seem like a little bit too much. Emergency preparedness. How do you prepare ahead of time before there is an emergency when you're out there? So what is the workflow for getting ready for an emergency? What do you bring with you? What do you consider while you're out there? Who do you let know that you're out there? Who do you tell where you've gone? Picking a destination could be another workflow for somebody who's into backpacking. Local, international, tallest summits, toughest climbs, all of those things could be considered when choosing where they're going to go next. And, you know, this isn't a niche that I know anything about really, but here's a whole bunch of workflows that people in this niche would probably be very interested in reading about and sharing with each other. So I think that you've been able to get some ideas on how you can share workflows in your own niche. But one more thought before we go. Why not invite your readers to share their own workflows? So you consider interviewing others in your niche about their workflows, or inviting guest bloggers to share their workflows on your site. People who are really super duper into a topic and who've thought through their processes would really love to share with others how and why they do what they do. But whether it's you sharing your workflow or a guest, people who are really tuned into your niche will appreciate this kind of detail and discussion around your chosen topic.